it's a very fleeting thing. It comes and goes. The ebb and flow of the industry. 1 minute you're hot, then you're not. You've got all the work, you've got no work. People are buying, and now they're selling.
Yeah,
It's tough, man. So yeah, I just have to make sure that I'm always good, and then everything else will hopefully fall into place.
It's a stylist league. Mike and B pitching the pen, making pictures ascend to the highest ring. The league. Raul running the scheme. Tune into the program and why receive. Yeah, we dropping these seeds. Art over everything. Drive the dream.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to an all-new Stylist League interview. Today we have a brand new interview with an amazing artist and painter. His name is Ed Bradley, and I personally can't tell you how excited I am to have Ed as the subject matter for our new interview. He's responsible for painting masters on statues. Maybe some of them you've seen before, maybe some of them you own. Some of them I definitely own. And I can't wait for you to see his work and get to hear a little bit about his backstory. So let's not waste any time and get right into it.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey, so I first saw Eddie's work on social media and reached out to him. I think I might have reached out to you when I was working on some painting and we were chopping it up about, you know, you painting some of my stuff, and I was trying to pick your brains for some of your techniques and stuff. But give us a little bit of a, for folks who don't know who you are, introduce yourself, tell them what you do, and who exactly Eddie Bradley is.
Well, Eddie Bradley. I lived most of my life in Ohio, typical comic book fan. Got into the toy and statue game around 2008, seriously, and was an aspiring artist, wanted to work in the industry. Started doing some small gigs for a local comic book shop, doing repairs, repaints, custom work. And it just kind of grew from there. So, by now anyone who's a collector has probably set a shelf up with a few pieces that I've prototyped. So, yeah. So things obviously went my way.
He says that's so nonchalant, these big statues that people spend almost $1,000 on. Like you might have had some of my work. Might be sitting on your shelf.
Nobody sets up to just do all right. Nobody's dream is ever like, I want to be the okayest guy on the block. I want to be the okayest painter that I can be.
I just want to get by, son. That's all I want to do. I just want to live. That's it. Just at my means. That's all. Never above.
All right. You start out. You start out.
Go ahead.
Way. Like if I could just be this, or if only I could do. You start off small, but then once you get in there, the ideas get pretty lofty. At least it did for me.
Yeah.
Like once I got my taste, I was like, all right, yep. Like it's everything I thought it was. But as we'll get into it more, eventually that turns back around the other way. So
no doubt. Well, of course you want to be the best painter. You don't want to be the most average painter out there. So you said you were, and then I'm gonna let Bradley take over because he's yeah. So you said that you do paint jobs that are used as prototypes for when they get sent overseas for the painters to use as reference.
Right. So I do the paint masters.
Okay.
For anything sculptural. I mean, everything from cheap little Happy Meal type toys, things that have no articulation and no moving parts at all the way up to like Marvel Legends type things, rotocast items for dolls, and high-end collectibles like Sideshow and Prime One. So kind of anything that falls in there, whether it can be Mickey Mouse, it can be Freddy Krueger, it can be Predator, it can be the President. It doesn't really matter if as long as you get decent reference and you kind of have a grasp on your materials and how your process works. You can do just about any subject matter. The only time that it really ever varies is for me anyway, it seems like is price point, like at the factory level. Like if the price point for the product is within a certain range, then you want to keep it the paint apps minimal, so that the factory can afford to do the entire piece within the price range, and then you don't pass that on to the consumer.
Right.
So that's part of my job as well, is how can you make it look the best and not put a ton of layers of paint on the thing and make it cost $85 when it's a PVC statue and our price point is $50.
Got you.
You know, make the most out of the little.
I have so many questions on that. So many questions. Yeah. I know that you didn't just wake up being this great. So where did you start? Like, did you go to school or like traditional? Like, how did you get into the painting and printing industry for statues?
So I didn't go to school. I actually went into the military right out of high school. No art school for me, no college, no education really. I got out of the military, and I still had my huge appetite for anime and Marvel Comics, DC Comics. Image was huge. When Image happened, that was like a big deal for me as well. But what really got me down that path and away from 2D art, which is what I wanted to do, I wanted to be an inker. There's an industry called garage kits, which is basically just unlicensed resin and vinyl models. And I found that stuff in like 1998, and was just building, in my basement, building models for myself. And then with the improvements with, the internet and camera phones and all that stuff, I was able to kind of share my work around the internet and get feedback from people who knew what they were looking at. To get real feedback from someone who understands paint was pretty big. It also opened up private collectors to me, so that I could build a portfolio to have something to take to potentially companies. So yeah, I didn't really get any formal training. It was more like fake it till you make it. Like, yeah, I was just looking at as much art as I could possibly consume, and then trying to do my best version of whatever felt right to me. And then eventually I had enough work built up, and was on a site called Statue Forum for a while. And that kind of put me where I needed to be. It got me in front of the right people. So,
and what year was that you kind of broke into the statues?
2008, 2009 is when it really started to be. It was pretty apparent that I had something. It's one thing when your friends or your grandma or your girlfriend tells you, "Oh, hey babe, you're pretty good at that." Right. I've never been that guy. I don't believe any of that type of reassurance. When a stranger who has no reason to compliment you or insult you tells you that you're good at something, and you see that they spend money on this thing, so they have an affinity for it. When that person tells you that you have something, you can pretty much plan on quitting your job and pursuing that thing.
So my wife and children lied to me.
They might. If they love you.
I quit my job. I quit my job. I should have asked a stranger. Yeah. So my thing is, so you weren't like, so as like, so in 2008 or before, like, were you like the kid that was like drawing and like there was always that one kid that would, like, when they got a coloring book, they made it look like it jumped off the page with colors? Like, were you always good with colors and like and color theory and stuff like that? Like, it's a natural gift, like it was something that you were just doing on the side?
I don't know that I was good with color right away, and there are still times where I struggle with contrast, because in my opinion, when you work in 3D, a lot of things to me what looks right to most people in my field, to me, feels heavy-handed and a little bit like overly done. My colors tend to be a little more saturated than most. My flesh tones tend to be a little less involved than most. I don't like things to be too busy. If it looks too grainy or too warm or too heavy or too anything, I don't like it. I feel like even when I was doing 2D art, I understood composition really well. I understood movement. I understood that it's all storytelling. Um, a statue on a shelf should tell a story. It should be a snapshot in time of something that's taking place, that's happening to a character, not just, another Wolverine just standing upright, looking somewhere with all of his muscles tensed at the same time. I think they
Right.
call that museum pose now. To me,
Yeah.
that's completely boring, and I don't really want to work on any of that stuff anymore. Um,
Hmm.
the thing I really liked about Sideshow was as their brand progressed, and even back at the early stuff. I don't want to talk down about any of it, but um, like that newest Cap where he's running and the bullet ricochets on the shield, and like
Hmm.
to me it's like, yeah, that's a page out of a comic. That's a panel.
Right.
That's
Right.
I can kind of figure out what's this character's motivation, what's he thinking, why is he doing what he's doing, why that base over any other base that you could put Cap on. Um, you know, I was always more concerned with the who, what, where, when, why, and how than just making a really cool looking Iron Man. But for what?
Right.
Why? Just to have it? Just to have him standing there? That's boring.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. Like I actually love to see the piece that tells the whole story. When you look at it, you're getting like a slice of a whole thing that's going on. Like this Venom piece behind me is, it's in the Norman Osborn kind of like factory. There's like the green goo beneath it and the glider. Like there's a whole thing that you can get from this piece as opposed to just another Venom kind of standing there. So I'm 100% with you. You said something earlier that I wanted to follow up on before we get too far ahead of it. You said that you initially, when you were doing 2D artwork, you wanted to get into inking, which I found interesting as somebody who got into coloring, but 3D, so painting. So I know when I was younger and I thought I was going to have a comic book career, I loved drawing the characters. I did a pretty good job at inking, but I didn't like it as much as, either the drawing part or the painting part. So it's a very specific set of skills. And so it's just, I found it kind of interesting that that's where you were on the 2D side, and you ended up kind of going towards the full coloring of these statues.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed inking. I liked being able to kind of pull elements of each panel out, varying line weights and halos around certain things so that you can.
Mhm.
So when you've got like an Arthur Adams or a George Perez style, amalgamation of like all these characters, none of the lines from one character to another should cross. You end up with this negative space or like white halo around each character where their bodies would intertwine.
Right. Right.
And also having a say in the final look of the pencils appealed to me a lot too. Just being able to like take what's already there, but kind of polish it or put my own spin on it, or change the shape of a tricep just a little, or the side of the little flare off the nostril just a little. That really appealed to me because my symmetry is not that great. So as a penciler or even as a sculptor, I've sculpted a few pieces traditionally, and I can do a bust. I can do something from like the chest up, because there's not that much symmetry involved. So recognizing my limitations early on also pushed me towards the thing I ended up in. I wasn't strong enough as a penciler, and I wasn't strong enough as a sculptor. So kind of being okay with where you do excel was a little bit of my mentality and my motivation too. Was, well, I don't totally suck over here, so let me stay over here where I'm a little more comfortable and stay away from the stuff that's problematic. Because like I said, being self-taught is also a lot of stealing. It's a lot of borrowing from other artists who are doing things well. So you want to emulate them and you want to copy them and steal from them a little bit. But at the end of the day, you want to get to a place where you're creating on your own. At some point, you want to break away from, okay, I don't want to need to put a piece of paper next to this cover and try to draw like Jim Lee anymore. I want to draw the
Right.
way I draw. And when you realize that it's not so pretty, you go, okay, then what else can I do? Um, for me, art was a lot of just um, not so much because I wanted to make other people happy, and I'm still very much that way now. It really is more. It's a selfish thing. It's very much about me being satisfied and me being happy, so that when I put my tools down or I turn my brain off at the end of the day, I want to feel like I didn't waste my time and that I got what I
Hmm.
needed out of it. Because art is a source of income for me, but it's also therapeutic, and it's a way for me to express myself and feel like I have an identity. I don't really have much of an identity outside of my family. It's my home life with my wife and kids, and then my work slash identity, because that's what I've poured all of me into building some sort of a career um,
Right.
on toys and statues. It's kind of it's a very fleeting thing. It comes and goes. The ebb and flow of the industry. One minute you're hot, then you're not. You've got all the work. You've got no work. People are buying, and now they're selling. Um,
Yeah.
it's tough, man. So yeah, I just have to make sure that I'm always good, and then everything else will hopefully fall into place. And then yeah,
That was like
Absolutely.
also that was like great advice. And as we're talking about your journey, like when as you're self taught, you found a niche that you're good at and that you're getting like what tell me about that first win of success. Like what piece was it,
mm,
and like how did you feel, like what was it, and take me back to that moment of like, oh, like I can do that, like all the time that I put into this, all the craft, like I can make this a career.
right. Okay, so the very first one, um, totally by chance. Um, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I didn't understand Facebook. I didn't understand social media really. Um, but I was doing a lot of work for the local shop on Bowen Designs was the thing at the time. Bowen was it,
Mhm.
and I was repainting and repairing a lot of that stuff. So I got an iPhone, so I just started taking pictures of all my repaints and repairs, and noticed he had a page, and I'm like, oh, I can reach out to this guy and show him what I've been doing. So I shot him over some pictures of some of his stuff that I had redone, and basically just said, you know, I'd really like to do this, but I have no idea. I have no ins, I have no connections, I don't have any friends in the industry. I'm in Ohio, so I don't ever get out to like New York or California or wherever I imagined this stuff was happening. And he was really cool. Randy responded, and it just so happened that he had two painters at the time. He had an in-house guy, and then he had a main freelancer, Dan Cope, um, that he was using pretty heavily. But I believe Dan was having some health issues, so Randy started freelancing around various painters to fill in. And here I come saying like, "Hey, I want some work," and he was like, "Okay, I'll give you a shot." So that was pretty surreal. I can remember when he responded and he said in Facebook Messenger, it was like probably 7 or 8 at night on a weeknight. I had a regular job, worked in a steel factory. My wife and daughter are watching American Idol upstairs, and Randy Bowen says, "I'll give you a call. What's your number?" And I lost my shit. I completely geeked out. I ran upstairs. I was so excited. Um, I ran it by my ex-wife to make sure that I'm like, hey, look, this is happening.
Mhm.
I really want this, but before him and I make any deal, I need you to know that I work 40 to 50 hours a week. Now I'm going to be working at night. I'm going to try to turn this into something, so I'm going to be busy. Are you okay with that? And she's like, yeah, do what you need to do. So went back downstairs, got on the phone with Randy, and that was it. I mean, my first job for him was Gladiator,
Wow.
The Daredevil villain Gladiator, the guy with the
Yeah.
buzzsaws on his. And that was my first joint for him. And I can still remember being at my old house down in the basement at my workbench, working on that thing and smiling from ear to ear and just bouncing on
Nice.
my toes, and like it was pure joy. I mean, every bit of it. Um,
That's dope, man.
yeah, yeah. So
That's dope.
that was when I got bit by the bug, and then once I finished that one, he was pretty happy, and he's like, "Are you ready for more?" and that it took off, and that's as
That's
they say, like, it's history. So,
dude, that's a
I
hell of
got
a
it.
way into the industry, man. Like
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
everybody knows Randy Bowen is. At least I'm a collector, so that's a giant that's a giant win, man. Especially for
yeah.
your first job. That's crazy.
It's
It's crazy.
it checks off multiple boxes. You know,
Yeah,
as a fan,
nice.
as a fan slash nerd slash artist, um, having that be your, like, you know, what else is there? I could have not gone further and still
Hmm.
been totally happy. I mean, I say
Sure.
that all the time. I'm like, I knew it wasn't this wasn't a never ending thing. Like, you know, this could have been a one and done, but the fact that I got to do it, you know, just being, you know, some stupid little white kid in you know, Podunk, Ohio, a crappy little poor town, um, doing this kind of stuff with no connections, no education, no formal
Uh-huh.
training, just because you like kind of willed it into being, is how I try to look at
Yeah,
it. Um,
that's dope, man. That's
yeah.
dope. So let me ask you this: when you did your first job, you
Mm.
went back down to the workshop, and you're like, okay, now I got to produce. The euphoria is probably you're on a 10 right now, and you're looking around. What did your workshop look like at that point? Because I know I have I'm just getting back into painting outside the matrix. Like, as I started as a 2D artist, with brushes and double O brushes and illustration, cold press board and all that, and then got into computers and never really looked back. Now I'm painting stuff and I'm trying to be like you, right? So I'm collecting my paints and stuff like that. How many paints did you have? When I say how many, you don't have to tell me the exact number, but did you have a small collection of paints that you were doing like magic with, or did you have like a nice hefty set and airbrush and all that nice stuff, compressor, the whole nine?
No, it was very uh, Dollar General in my
Yeah.
workshop. I was using all the cheap stuff. Um,
Hmm.
my airbrush was super basic. It was a single action siphon fed Iwata, but
Hmm.
it was a workhorse, man. Like, you could throw that thing out the window, pick it up, and it'll just keep on working.
Nice.
I had a really loud pancake air compressor that just vibrated the basement floor.
Yeah.
No, it was, yeah. I'm thinking back to that. The nicest thing about my workshop then was I had pegboard on the wall in front of me,
Hmm.
um, to be able to, like, hang things from. But I mean, the materials themselves. Um, Back then, I still subscribed to the whole, like, if you're an artist, you're an artist. There's people who can do portraits on a black table with table salt. There's
Oh
people
yeah.
who can do portraits on a cheeseburger wrapper with ketchup. I didn't
Hmm.
believe. I never bought into the idea that I need to buy the elite brand name product to be a good artist. I just need to understand the process and be in control and be concise and do it on purpose. I think a lot of people, like, when I first started painting, I noticed that I was making shit up as I went along. A lot of it was just me fumbling through and fixing mistakes as I go.
Sure.
Rather than knowing what to do and doing it intentionally and saying, oh yeah, when I do skin tones now, my process is intentional. I already know the next 5 steps before I do it. But back then, it
Hmm.
wasn't that way. It was, well, let me put this down and I'm gonna do this over it and see what that looks like. Does it look good?
Right.
No. I got to correct it. It took me like 3 times as long, wasted more material, wasn't confident, wasn't charging anything because I knew I didn't have anything worth charging for. You charge for
Hmm.
experience and craftsmanship, two things I did not have. I had a
Right.
little bit of ability and I had the time, excuse me, and the will, but I knew I was realistic. I wasn't there. Like, I wasn't ready for that. So I didn't start to upgrade my arsenal until I knew that I was getting faster and I was doing things on purpose and I had a game plan before the piece even arrived. I'm looking at the renders or looking at the castings. Back then it was all resin castings, not
Hmm.
prints. Um, I would start to piece things together in my head, as soon as I would get eyes on the shapes and the form, and see the reference and which version of cap are we doing? Are we doing like, 80s bright blue, bright red, or are we doing the muted stuff where it's more navy and it's darker?
Right.
I noticed that I knew how to put a plan together because I started to understand my process. So I went from just guessing to more or less knowing. And then once you get into that middle place, now you start to talk to other painters and you start to take notes and you start to ask them for tips and tricks because you have something worth building on. Until you have that grasp and that understanding, you can talk to the best painters all day long. It's going to go over your head. You don't really understand what they're talking about because you haven't arrived at that point yet. So I always felt like a fraud, and sometimes I still do. But yeah, that confidence came once I realized that I was learning and I was improving, and so if I want to say I want a $300 airbrush, I deserve a $300 airbrush because I know how to use it now.
Right.
If I want to spend $1,000 on a new line of paints, I deserve that line of paints because I'm going to turn around and feed my family on this shit. So
exactly.
Why not? So I think that people who think they need to go and get all the gear right out of the gate, you're kind of fooling yourself. If you're a shit painter today, you'll be a shit painter tomorrow with the best of everything in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. With expensive paints. Right. So how many? Oh, I'm sorry, Bradley. They're just how many years from you starting off until you start to, like Neo, believe that you're the one? Like you start to get like, okay, I know what I'm doing now, and I'm really feeling it, and it's comfortable now.
From 2008 is when I really started trying. 2015 is when that's when I quit my full-time job and I started an LLC and I got a studio and started pushing my weight around with all the companies to see who would do what. I had already done a year's worth of work for Bowen, and then that ended. Then Eric Sosa kind of picked me up when he was working with Koto Bukiya, so I worked for him pretty steady. And then I started talking to Diamond Select Toys and saying, hey, I want to do this full time. I've got 2 years of part-time work under my belt. I showed them the Bowen stuff. I showed them the Koto stuff. They were with it immediately. So it just made sense. It was like, all right, I hate my job. I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna go do this. And so I started taking on private commissions as well, going on Facebook to all the groups. You know how those guys are. There's always stuff out there to be done. Alternate portraits and repainting portraits and entire quarter scale kits that need painted from the ground up. So I was doing a little bit of that and then a little bit of commercial, and then the commercial stuff just kept coming. Then it was Mezco Toys, then it was Sideshow, then it was DC Direct, then it was Dark Horse Comics, and I'm like, yeah, it's there's ever since I got in, there's always been an abundance of sculptors, and that's only gotten to be more true. Yeah. There's never really been a lot of painters running around, looking for jobs. It seems like it's true. It's kind of the same people, just trying to service as many, but there's not enough of us. So, to fast forward a little bit, I would say any painter who has multiple Facebook groups or even other artists acknowledging their work, you owe it to yourself to try. I mean, you miss all the opportunities that you don't take, right? Or all the shots you don't take.
Right.
I think everybody owes it to themselves. If you want something bad enough, put it out there in the world, and life has a way of teaching you those hard lessons when it needs to. People's opinions change, and the companies are the ones that matter. So find a way to contact these people on social media, get a nice portfolio together, and say, hey, I really enjoy this work. I'd like to do this. Do you have anything for me? And they'll either say sure or they'll say pass. But I would say that the idea that there's a lot of competition, I don't think there's really a lot of competition. A lot of times it's project managers going, hey, I need somebody to tackle this project. I need somebody to get this work done so this product can get made. Not to be disrespectful, but in some cases, I think it may start getting to a point where they're going to say, you'll do. Let me see what you got. Okay, yeah, that's good enough. You don't have to be, upper level, top tier, believe in your own hype. You don't have to be on that level. I think professionally, if you learn the hard lesson I had to learn of, don't overbook yourself. Make sure your rates are reasonable. Turn in good work on time and have a good bedside manner. If you have those things working for you, you're already ahead of me. You're ahead of me, because that's what sunk me ultimately was I didn't do all those things at the same time.
Yeah.
So
you were taking too much work. I'm sorry, Bradley.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say you did answer one of the questions that I had for you, but I just wanted to, like, for those who are listening. So one thing you said that was one of your artistic challenges overall is that you was kind of like fumbling around, didn't have a plan of when you're doing skin tones and stuff like that, trying to, like, I'm gonna correct it later. So what was the exact issue that you faced, and what was the exact plan of attack that you used to rectify it, right? Yeah.
So the problem was I didn't really understand layering at the time. I didn't understand playing with the translucency or the transparency of color. You know, I really didn't understand, just kind of like building a house, right? All of these different things are only good at a certain time. If you do a step too soon, you're going to cover it up later. If you do it too late, it looks heavy-handed and dirty, and it's a balance. It's kind of learning. You have to do it enough and screw up enough to learn from those mistakes, and then you figure out, like, okay, I didn't mean to do that here, but that would totally work for something else. So let me put that in my pocket and save it for later. You're kind of taking notes on the way that the way that paint acts in real time as you go. It's like you're kind of in class with yourself, if it makes sense. Like, you're the teacher and the student at the same time. When you're learning how to do something on your own, you're literally just learning from your mistakes. And then the stuff that goes right, okay, that went right, so I'm going to keep doing that. And the stuff that goes wrong, you're like, nah, maybe not do that next time. But more than not just that it didn't work, but why it didn't work. Noticing the conditions under which certain materials don't play well together. I don't know. I just tell everybody, like, you have to just get your hands dirty and be willing to kill a few hours to come away with maybe a minute's worth of valuable information. Because it is not a fast process. At least it wasn't for me.
Lesson.
You have to. It's why I tell everybody, like, if you want to do something like this, you really have to enjoy it. Because there's gonna be hours where you could have been sitting down with the kids. You could have been, having a drink and listening to a good album. You could have been out with some friends making memories. You could have been doing home improvement things. You could have been, focusing on you getting something going for your retirement. You could have been doing all the adult things. But instead, I'm spending 10 hours going, you know what? I don't like the way I paint fingernails and cuticles on a hand. I want that shit to be realistic. Let me see if I can figure that out today. So go print a hand from whatever and sit down and just do that shit and just try and go look at your own hands or go online and do Google image searches and look for pictures of whatever it is you're trying to do and really look at the color and all the nuance and figure out, how do I do that with color? How do I layer, paint and make that look that way? Once you start viewing it that way, I think you're in a good headspace. And I don't know how that applies to anything else.
That applies to a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that applies to everything. It's that's sage advice, man. And even the fact of, like, you gotta love what you do, and if you don't enjoy it, then what's the point? It's funny. My daughter, both my kids are also very art inclined, and in college, my daughter got into painting tennis shoes. So she was using, like, the shoe paint, and I gave her an airbrush and everything. That she learned, like me, like I'm sure that you learned early on, that something as simple as immediately cleaning the airbrush after you run the paint through it, is going to make your life infinitely easier. Like I used to use I have a couple of Iwatas, and I would run the paint through it and set it down and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to have dinner real quick and come back. And it's just like insanely difficult to clean that shit. Like the needle is stuck in there, and then I bend the tip of the needle, and it's a whole big mess. So, any tips that you can give for someone who's just getting into maybe your line of work that you figured it out, and now you're probably like, yeah, of course. But, you know, back in the day, it was like a revelation.
I mean, everything is a valid material. Alcohol markers have their place. Chalk pastel powders have their place. For washes, using oil paints to make washes, because they're pigment heavy, they settle a little easier into all the details, whereas acrylic paint will kind of like get jagged edges and just kind of want to float around. It doesn't really settle well. Dry brushing with oils looks a little, you can feather it a little nicer when you dry brush with acrylics. It can get a grainy, heavy look to it. Yeah, I mean, anything that you can use to make art that has color, go to Goodwill, go to the thrift store, buy cheap toys and practice on those. Buy Barbie heads to practice doing nice female faces and cosmetic looks.
Right.
Yeah, just the best advice I can give is don't ever look at any material as it's not suitable for creating whatever it is you want to create, and don't spend a lot of money on anything until you're absolutely sure that that's the thing that you need. There's always time to upgrade later, as I said earlier. Really just focus on it's practice. Put the time in. Like, if you sit down and you're willing, because once you start working for clients, that's what's going to happen. The clients are going to have a demand of your ability, and the more time you sit over here questioning yourself or spinning your wheels or handing over the same thing, and they're going, no, you're not getting it. I want this. Yeah, that's when those hours pay off. That's when going, oh, I know. You grab whatever, you pull that trick out that you learned last month when you were just fooling around. You know, I don't know that there's really, it's weird. There's not a lot online to go to for someone who wants to learn how to. The miniature painters are getting real popular, and those guys that's a whole other thing. All that forced light and shadow, like that's more like canvas painting on a 3D figure to me, which is not what I
was going to ask. I was going to ask you, are you, so for base coats, do you do like...
There's a difference? To me, it's all painting statues. There's a difference?
No. Base coat, are you doing a light gray base coat, or are you doing like the dark and then like black and then zenithal highlights before you start putting any paints down?
So really it depends. If I was painting, say, Hellboy, I'm going to start black. I'm going to start as dark as I can. And then in order for that red to register, I'm going to have to lay down yellow or white. Otherwise, you can't get that vibrant red on top of black. So you can do like a spray over with white primer and just aim it right down at, because your light source for the figure is going to probably come from above to the left or to the right. Let that paint and let all those details do the work for you. Then go back and just spray like a transparent bright red over that. You're already halfway there. But if I'm doing like a Conan the Barbarian or something like that, I'm going to start with white primer because gray is going to green him out.
Okay.
If you're going to do brown skin, African American skin, you want to start with rusty red brown.
Okay.
As your base coat, and you're going for your initial highlights and secondaries, you're going to want to use more of a yellowy flesh, and then that's when you'll tie in transparent color like burnt oranges, warm it up with purple, depending on how light or how dark. And this is all just color theory. This is all just playing with tones. So my base layers and my primer actually completely has everything to do with my color palette that I'm going to use on the figure. So if I'm doing like Miles Morales, I'm going to stay in the middle of the road. I don't want to go too dark or too light. I want to be able to work that out with my colors, but I need my colors to read properly. So I'm gonna play it safe. If I'm doing a Hulk, I can start gray, probably gray green, like a zombie-ish kind of flesh to start with. That way I can work out rich darker greens and maybe some browns, and then add some yellow for the highlights. Yeah, it just depends, man. Like who and what you're painting totally should determine your entire process. Anybody who does the same thing cookie cutter all the time, their work's probably going to look really flat and not very punchy, you know, which is what I used to do too. Everything was gray primer for years. Like I just thought that's what you did, because that's what all the other model painters were doing. They were just using light gray automotive primer for everything. And then I realized part of the reason why my Caucasian flesh tones looked weird was I'm painting on top of gray. So I cut that
a
out.
green tinge to them. Gotcha.
So yeah,
that's good info, man. Like I didn't know that. I'm like okay.
I just learned a lot.
I'm done printing this thing. Let me spray gray primer on it now. So that's good to know.
Yeah. But for the quarter scale stuff, I would recommend going to like if you have an RC hobby type place near you, they're going to carry a lot of rattle can stuff, the Tamiya, all the colors you could possibly want. Do yourself a favor, save yourself some headaches. Start base coating with rattle cans instead of an airbrush. It's faster. You get a way more even coat of paint. You're going to kill your finger or take 3 hours trying to base coat everything with an airbrush and build that. Because when you try to build up color with an airbrush, you'll see, the heavier layers that you get are darker. You'll get light spots that will show through. A lot of these like Rust-Oleums and Krylons even have like these double coverage recipes that they make now. And it's basically you just put the thing in your spray booth and hit it real quick and your base coat's done. And now you can really get in and start doing all the techniques, because you just say
it's funny you say that.
Half a day.
I was using those cans and I was like, oh, this is the magic bullet. So I went and bought like a grip of them, spent a whole bunch of money. I had all these cans of gray, and they were Rust-Oleum. And I was like, oh, I really like these. Dude, half of the cans, I would spray them, get one good like base coat on my stuff, and then I would go back and I'd click on the thing and it'd be like and I could not get any air to come through it no matter what. Like I'd turn it upside down and do all kinds of, and it was done. The can is done and it's like 3/4 full. So I was like, you know what? This is crazy. I'm not screwing with this anymore. So tell me, Eddie, Bradley, what was I doing wrong? What was I doing wrong?
Nozzle could have been clogged up. Sometimes if you put them in hot water for a little bit, all the stuff at the bottom will release and everything will, kind of, I don't know the scientific term for it, but you put the shit in warm water, you heat it up, you shake it up, it normally fixes the problem.
Just the cap or the whole bottle?
The whole can. Put the whole can in hot water.
Oh my God. I wish I knew that, man. I threw away like $70 worth of cans.
Something you should do when you're using spray cans at the end of every session when you're spraying, turn it upside down and hold the nozzle in, and then you'll get just aerosol, which clears your nozzle and the stem that the nozzle attaches to. It'll clear that out, and then you shouldn't have those issues anymore.
Felt like when I was doing that, I was spraying out all the air, and then I had no air to go through the can, and also I had gray fingers because that shit got all over my hands.
Oh yeah.
So anyway,
latex gloves, or if you're allergic to latex, whatever kind of glove. Nice. I didn't start doing that until I started working with Sideshow.
There's
a lot of stuff I picked on from Kat. Like she would just make suggestions. She's wonderful with just all the knowledge that she brings with her when you get to where, okay, I'm doing.
Who's Kat for us who don't know?
Sideshow.
Kat Sapine, the paint manager, lead painter over at Sideshow. Yeah, like she was my initial contact. So every project that I initially did, I went to her. She was my go-to. And she was, just within an email of just making a couple of comments on whatever I had turned in for that week, would throw out suggestions and techniques or materials, or like even what to do with your old airbrush needles when your needle's bent and it's no good. She saves all of those, and I'm like, what's that for? Little tiny parts. She'll take the needle and she'll twist and push it and get it to stick to the little tiny part, so you can paint that part without touching it, and it just sticks on.
Wait,
the end
what?
Of the, all the end
what
of
do
an
you
old
do now?
airbrush. The airbrush needle. Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You save all your bad needles, and you basically like if you have like a little belt buckle for Cap or a Batman or whatever. On the inside of the part where it's going to attach to the figure, you take the needle and you smush it in there and let the tip of the needle burrow into the part. It'll pin itself in there without having to drill or glue or anything. It works.
Oh, then you just hold it.
And you just hold the needle with the part on the end of it, and you can hands-free paint the damn thing. And
that's awesome.
I got that from her. So yeah, she's pretty fucking amazing with those kind of just stuff I never would have thought of. So
I got to meet. No, she wasn't there that day. Who's the other artist? The guy in the paint shop. Amazing artist. Oh man, why can't I remember his name?
There's Casey and there's Bernie and there's Cheese.
Bernie.
Cat.
Yeah. So I went in. So Bradley, when I got to go to Sideshow, it was literally like going to like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. So I'm walking around. They're showing me like all the stuff, and then I got to go to the secret floor and walk around. But my favorite part by far was the paint shop. Like when I went in there and I'm looking around, I was just like mind blown. They were working. Bernie was working on the the series that came out with Spider-Man, Miles and Spider-Gwen, and it's like you have those forced perspective bases with the cities. Dude, he was painting the Spider-Man. It didn't even look real because he was using a fluorescent red in the red areas. And I was just like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Clean, so clean, man. But yeah, there's a little aside because I geek out over what you do. Like, this is the great thing about having your own show. You can invite on people who you really enjoy their work, right? So when I saw some of your, and we're going to get into this in the second hour, but when I saw your pieces and especially the Captain America piece with the Ultron head, like I was like, dude, first of all, Daniel Bell, amazing sculpt. I know that somebody worked on the base with him. But then when I saw the paint job, like I was especially kind of blown away by just how good it looks. So tell me, if you don't mind, a little bit about, well, I guess that's second hour. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm a fan, bro. I'm a fan. I like your work, son.
So little bit of info on that one. The original prototype had so Cap has his fingers in the mouth of the Ultron bot's head, right?
Yeah.
Originally, there was a whole upper torso attached to that head.
Oh, wow. Wow.
For whatever reason and there was also an unmasked portrait. Hope I'm allowed to talk about this shit. There was a Steve Rogers Ken doll looking head as a swap out portrait that I don't think they ended up going with either.
Do you know the guy that does the custom? There's a dude somewhere that he did a custom portrait for that. What's his name? Do you know?
His name is Chung Kingman.
Yes. Yeah, I got his bearded Cap.
Yeah, we're somewhat Facebook chat buddies. We were gonna do a Devilman collaboration piece way back when, but he's got the same thing going on that I have going on. Just too much stuff to do.
Too busy.
Got to make money, so can't really do it. But he's great. He's a really cool dude, very talented. So yeah.
So before we get into the second hour, I got a really important question that I would like for you to answer.
Sure.
What do you do that you enjoy that's not art related?
That's not art related? It's real simple. I like being stupid with my dogs. I like giving speeches
what
to
kind
my
of dogs?
They're both pit mixes. One is a half Mastiff, half pit. And the other one's she's a mutt. She's like 4 different breeds. So she's like a hound dog and she's like a smaller version of the other one. So one's like the female's name is Akira, and she's very compact and muscular and energetic and loving. And then Dutch is the big. He's the powerhouse, but he's slow and he's kind of dumb and he's very aloof. He's not friendly with people. Doesn't like to be touched much. But they're my babies. So yeah, I get a lot of enjoyment with it's been really nice since we got them. That when I had a studio, because I've had several studios over the years, but they would always go to the studio with me to work every day. Every hour I'd take a break. I'd go out, take them outside, take them for a walk so they could pee on everybody's stuff. And then we go back to work. So like, it's been really cool and really I've been fortunate to be able to bond with my pets, because of the nature of my job. It's allowed me for a lot of things that the people who work a regular grind type job, they don't get to have. It's a trade-off, right? Like there's things, when you have structure and you have a place of business and you wear less hats and you have less responsibility and things are a little more fleshed out for you and they're a little more stable, but also you're stripped of all your freedoms. You probably can't take a break when you want. You can't listen to music or watch movies or play with your dogs or whatever. So it's been been really cool being able to spend more time with my pets than I think most pet owners get to do, because they're at work most of their day. They're not at home. Right. And for me, it's the opposite. So.
Oh, cool. Are there any like TV shows or series that you've recently watched that you like, that you're watching, that you're enjoying?
Man, I liked The Peripheral. That was pretty amazing. I liked that's the series on MGM Plus. I think it's called From. I believe that's what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
I just finished the second season of that and was pretty bummed that it was over already.
Yeah.
My favorite, like as far as franchises, like RoboCop, Predator, Aliens, Pumpkinhead. I'm diehard on all those. Like, you can do no wrong in my eyes with those.
I know something you like that you didn't mention.
What's that?
Hip hop, and especially Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah. So my musical tastes are a little all over the place, but
you're from Ohio. It makes sense.
Yeah, like it's just kind of how it is here. Like it's not like some friends that I have that are from other states or come from different suburban areas or whatever you want to call it. It's almost like their family experience kind of dictated a lot of what they're into. And then the area that I grew up in, white families were the minority in that area. So, I was just kind of picking up on whatever the kids around me were into.
Yeah.
So you're catching me over at someone's house and, the record player's got Donna Summer on. And then I'm like, kind of getting into disco. And then I'm finding out that I like classic soul and funk. And then, things start to progress. And that's kind of where my musical tastes stayed. Whatever you would call white people music wasn't really the thing that was getting played in my area. But you just end up liking what you like, and it's like that's what I was exposed to. So
I'm the only one that likes Michelle Branch. That's what we're saying.
Yes,
that's what we're saying. Okay,
you're on your own. You're on your own.
I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is.
I get it. And there was one TV series I know that you think is a masterpiece that you didn't say. Moon Knight was amazing, wasn't it?
Oh no. Oh no. Is that what you said? You didn't say that, Ed. Tell me you didn't say that.
Great. All right, Moon Knight was amazing. All right.
Okay, well, so listen, I don't know how many L's Bradley has to take on this. I don't know how many times he has to get knocked down on this, but here's another one. Here's another one. It so wasn't. Anyway, sorry you had to go through that, man. I'm sorry about that.
I'm not with you on Moon Knight.
Wait a minute. I think we just bonded. Is this what you just drank? Is this what you have? My man.
Of course.
My man. See?
You know what?
See?
You know what? Makes a
That's
whole
what's
lot.
up.
this makes
That's
a
why we know
whole
Moon Knight was
lot of sense.
trash because we
Hey,
both
hey,
are. We both
hey.
have our Chick-fil-A drink.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
So, Mike,
Let's do some art stuff. Let's do art
let's
stuff.
do some art. So, what piece you want to start with, Mike? Because I have a couple of my favorites. I have a couple of my favorites.
Okay, I want to start with scroll down. Scroll down. Let's see a little more. Okay, the bishop is dope. But hold off on the bishop. Hold off on the bishop. Keep going down a little more.
That's it. You want me to go up or?
Where is? No, where's the cap that I have? The Daniel Bell Captain America. I don't see it in there.
Okay, it was here. Is this it?
No, that's not it.
Should go down.
Is that everything I sent you?
There are 3 files here that seem to be corrupted, and so
no.
I can't open them. So I don't know if that's it. But
maybe. All right, well go to the
Oh, here it is.
Either of the
here.
You got
It's right there.
There it is, right there.
Mr. Freeze. Yeah.
Perfect. That's the one. Yeah. Yeah, dude. Come on now, player. This thing is beautiful. Tell us about this. Run us through this.
So that was fun. The only thing I really remember about that one was at the end when they were. So when you do a freelance piece like this for Sideshow and you do it remote, at the end they'll kind of give you some, I remember something about the top of the helmet, like put a little more highlight, add some white to the blue, and like just really hit the top. And the tops of the shoulders and the chest a little bit. Go in and like just kind of kiss certain spots. Like when you have good art direction, they'll have an eye for things where they'll see those things and they'll tell you, it looks great, but if you were to add just this one more thing. So that's what I remember the most about this piece was that I was really happy and it was really cool, and I'm like, this is probably the best cap I've ever seen. And then they came in and they gave me some ideas for how to, make it even better. And then I did the changes and I was like, shit, that is like, it's amazing how you can look at something that you've put so many hours into and you think you see it for what it is. And then someone else comes in and they're like, tweak this, and this. And you do those tweaks and you go, oh yeah, that's like night and day. It's so much better. So
that's the best.
So for someone who is just learning about the collectibles industry, and you said earlier that so you make the master, so you made the master paint for this one, and someone has to go behind you and do the exact same thing that you did every single time. Is that how that process works?
Yeah. So the factory will get the paint master, and the factory has to visually break it down and duplicate what we do.
Do you have to provide notes, or they just do it from reverse engineering it?
We used to. There was a time where they would send you sheets, and there would be swatches where, okay, there'd be a little box, and you'd fill it in with that color, and next to that color, you would write down where it goes and how you applied it. So they would have a kind of a visual, so they could see like how opaque or how translucent the color was, and if you sponged it, what did the pattern look like? Was it more of like an open celled sea sponge type of a pattern, or is it like a closer together makeup sponge type of pattern? So yeah, we used to provide that, and then everybody kind of phased that out because the factories got really good at just doing it from on site.
Oh wow!
What are you using for masking on that? Like that's always been my biggest question for this kind of thing. Like, did you base out a particular color, like the entire thing blue, and then come in and add the whites and the reds and all the other stuff later, or what was the process on this guy?
So I hate masking. I will try to not mask shit as much as possible. If I don't have to mask it,
I'm with you.
I'm not going to. But on him, I primered everything white. Then I masked off all the white areas and used blue spray paint for all the blue for a base coat.
What are you using for your masking? Are you using that like the paint on stuff? Are you using tape, masking tape? What are you using?
I use I go between, and I use them at the same time too. I do the green frog tape brand masking tape, and I also use silly putty. So I'll do the frog tape everywhere that the lines are straight enough that I can butt up against an edge. But when things are
Okay.
more organic or more contoured and have more life to them, more robust items, I go in after. I'll use the frog tape to just kind of do the big stuff, and then I'll do the silly putty right up against all the shapes, and I'll use a sculpting tool to kind of refine the edge and smooth it along to get it nice and liquid tight so the paint can't leak down in there. And then when it's all done, you just yank the silly putty off and then pull the tape, and you're good to go.
Okay.
So that's what I use. It's because I'm lazy as hell when it comes to masking. I don't want to have to mess with it.
And are you using like the $50 Da Vinci sables to get like the how? What are you doing for your really thin, somewhere where you really need to maintain a tip on a brush?
So I recently found some brushes that Tamiya makes, and I really like those. I posted on Facebook a couple weeks back. But I don't know the name of the line or whatever. I just know if you would go to Amazon and type in, Tamiya brush, you'll probably find one that'll work for you. They all seem to be pretty quality. Other than that, I buy I go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever, and those really crappy $7.99 packs of just random brushes.
Really?
Yeah, I'll buy one of those because there's some flat shaders in there that I like. There's some rounds in there that I like. If I want a detail brush or a liner brush, I'll go specifically seek that out. But for just random brushes, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
I'm talking about like your the one that you really kind of take care of. What are you using for that?
It's a 00 liner from Tamiya.
Okay, cool.
How long
this piece is killer,
would it
man.
take you to paint this piece? Like, how long did this take?
I had to do 2 identical copies at the same time. Like,
Geez.
A lot of companies would have you do 2 because one's going to go to the factory and one is going to be used for photography and solicitation. And then when the factory sends the samples back, you've got to have a control piece to compare the sample to.
Match.
You already gave them your other control piece. So how do you know if they're hitting the nail on the head if you don't have something to compare it to? So you do 2 copies. You send one to China. You keep one here, and that's how most of them used to do it. Lately, it seems like that's kind of not the thing anymore. And most of the work I've been doing for the past year, it's just 1 copy, and it's not even a resin casting anymore. In some cases, they're just having someone either send me the print or they'll just hire me to do the print here. Wow. But that took me to do both copies of Cap was 3, almost 4 weeks.
Okay.
So for most quarter scale stuff, they'll give you about 3 weeks to do both copies.
Right,
Nice.
Cool. Wow. And the fact that you did 2 of them at the same time is crazy to me.
Yeah, the boots alone on that are worth the price of admission, man.
Where you want to go next,
You did your
Mike?
thing on that. Can we go to the beast on the table with the Cavassier?
Yes. Where was that one?
Right there.
Right there.
Right here.
You were right on down next to underneath the Burt. Nope, not that beast. The other one.
There's another beast.
Next to Burt.
This one?
Yeah, there you go. Yep. That one. That thing, I saw that on IG, and I immediately stopped everything I was doing and was like, oh, just the bottle on the table alone. You have that looking like liquor for the world. Like go to the next one where you can actually see the bottle. The glass and the liquor is crazy on this piece. And the wood, everything, and the video game. All right, first of all, you got mad details in this. But all right, Bradley, I want you to notice, first of all, the books are dope.
Yes.
The bottle is stupid, right? Look at the table. Look at the table. Come on, bro. Come on. But go, if you wouldn't mind, be so kind as to go over to the computer where you will see the X-Men video game on the table.
So
Come on, man.
I did this piece for a private collector, like my first year as a full-time freelancer, and I was asking him, "What do you want for the?" And everybody who had someone commission this kit for them, kind of all did the same thing, and I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else." So I found some screen grabs of the old arcade game, took it to a print shop, had it done to scale, and then printed on cardstock, and I stuck it on the laptop, and I was like, "How you like
sick.
that? What do you think of that?" And he
That's
was
so
like,
sick.
because everybody else was doing like Xavier's files or Danger Room files or like
Right.
newspaper ads of Magneto attacking. And I'm like,
right.
you guys are taking this shit too serious. Let's have fun. So my approach to a lot of this is like, I just want to be kind of goofy and have fun with it. I'm not looking to be super serious and like move everyone and make a statement or be political or whatever. Like just should feel like Saturday morning cartoons when you were 10. You know what I mean?
Dude, the office furniture on this alone is and then, so is the rug part of, that's not part of the base, is it the rug underneath of it?
That is a shitty old like bath towel that I put down on top of
the
table. Because it kind of looked like carpet, and I was like,
it does look like carpet.
It does. Dude, that is crazy, man. Like, so this is one of my favorite pieces of yours, by far. This one is sick. And you said you did that for a private collector. So did he commission somebody to sculpt it, and then did you have to print it and paint it, or what do they do? Send you the print?
This was a kit that was produced by Ownage, I believe.
Okay.
Someone commissioned a sculptor, then he had it sent to Ownage, had it printed, mold and cast. Then they sold unpainted copies of the kit, which were very expensive. And then from there, you have to buy the kit, and then you have to find a painter like myself to bring it to life for you. The one thing I do want to say about this one, I'm still in contact with this collector. He's used me several times. The Bishop with all the swap out heads was for him as well.
Okay.
He's one of the few collectors who, when he hires me, doesn't just hire me to complete a job or to bring his idea to life. He's like, look, I like what you do. I trust you. He'll give me a rough guideline, and for the most part, he just lets me go, lets me do it. So most of the color choices and everything on this whole piece was me saying, I'd like to do it like this. And so I would do it and then say, how does this look? And all he ever says is dope, dope, dope. He likes my take on things, which is hard to find as an artist, to find a client that genuinely wants your take on a thing and not just do it my way because I'm paying, it's my money, so do what I say. He's very, very accommodating in that way, and I really enjoy working for him. His name is
Roderick
Lathan.
Amazing.
Wait, I'm sorry, what's his name?
Roderick Lathan.
Okay, so first of all, shout out to Roderick, but also, please believe if you weren't making good decisions, he wouldn't say, do what you want to do. So that's first and foremost. I will tell you this, there's no greater feeling than when a client says, hey, do what you do. That's it. And then you give it back to them and they're like, this is better than we thought it was going to be. So yeah, no, that's all you, bro. That's all you. The fur that you did on there, tell me, is that, because I'm geeking out over this, is that, do you put down a base, then do washes, and then do dry brush? Like, what is your technique?
So I start somewhere in the middle, and then I'll do some darker washes. And what I'll do is like, I'll do the base coat, I'll seal it, then I'll do the washes. And then I do this a lot. I'll take an old t-shirt or even the shirt that I'm wearing, and I'll wrap it around my finger, and I'll get it wet with my mouth, and then rub the surface off so that all of the wash stays down where I want it, almost like a stain or a glaze. But it's a lot faster than doing that, because glazes and stains can take hours to dry thoroughly. So it's just a faster way for me. It's like a combination wash, dry brush at the same time.
So I have a question for you, because I have never done a successful wash. I put it down, And then when I go to either dab it or wipe it or try to get it off, all the stuff that's in the crevices that I like comes right out with everything else. So what am I doing wrong? Too much pressure? Am I not letting it sit there long enough? What?
I mean, with a lot of washes, you should really with washes, most of the time I just dab around the edges of the wash so it doesn't get like a harsh, like a perimeter line around it.
Okay.
But if you can get denatured alcohol, try adding denatured alcohol to your washes. You know, it just works. I don't really even need to say why. It just does.
Do you make your own, or you're buying them? Do you buy the wash?
I make my, if there's a really, if you go to YouTube and you type in Sideshow paint video or Sideshow Superman, Bernie does a tutorial on how to do flesh tones on a Superman, and he shows you the transparent washes, and he shows you to put them on and use the makeup sponge and do the alcohol spritz. He shows you all of that, and that's exactly how it's done. So
he was saying in that video, I remember watching that, he was talking about doing making your own, but it was like a oil wash or something like that. And I actually was trying to get a hold of him, because I was like, dude, how do you even do that? Like, so I'm going to pick your brain later on about how to make a decent wash, and maybe we can tell people later on, if you don't mind sharing any of that info.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
What I really love about this beast is like the highlights that you put on top of the fur to really help it stand, like the whites, like I just love, like you see the depth behind the fur, but then you see the white strokes just punching that out. Like that's pretty dope.
When I was newer to painting, the way I would have handled that before was, the way I thought it worked was, you just started darker and then you would lighten your color and you dry brush, but I would end up dry brushing the whole thing, so you weren't getting those little individual strands of contrast. It's like I just kept dry brushing lighter color, but I'm hitting the entire surface. So even something like a Chewbacca ends up just looking really muddy, because I didn't really, I wasn't attacking it the right way. I wasn't trying to isolate. If you stop and look at a person's hair, like in the way the light hits, the top of their hair, and the way, I don't know, you just start seeing everything around you and going, oh, okay, so when I paint it, it needs to look like that. Start cataloging everything around you and apply it, to that, and you'll start to do it that way too. After so many years, you can't help yourself. It's just how it worked out, I guess.
Are you familiar with any of the YouTube painters? There's a dude named Ground Affected I really like. That's I think he's either in England or Scotland or something like that, but does like painting videos for everything. Have you ever thought about doing something like that?
If I ever get back into doing more private commission stuff or personal stuff, where there's no license involved, there's no NDA, I would absolutely love to do videos and run through some drills and discuss materials. The only problem with it now is, because this is how I actively make my living, I have to justify spending the time to make the content and then upload it for people to consume.
Sure.
I don't really have a lot of time to just, for free sit down for an hour and dissect how to do stone, or how to paint weathered metal, or how to do rust effects, or the proper way to do a faux bronze, or, how to make something look illuminated that actually has no light in it whatsoever. We can do all of that, but there needs to be some type of compensation for me to justify the time. It has nothing to do with sharing the information at all. I have no problem pulling back the curtain, if that's what you want to call it. I mean, in my mind, I'm not that special, and I'm really not telling that much. But
this time you're taking away from making money that you can, provide for your family. So that makes sense. It makes sense. Right. Dude, click. I'm sorry, Bradley. While click on the Kingdom Come Superman real quick. I'm sorry, Eddie. Keep going.
No, I don't remember what I was going to say. I mean, it may get to a point where I'm in the right situation,
Mm-hmm.
and if I thought enough people would actually join a Patreon to where it would be worth my time,
Yeah.
I could do that. But even then, I don't see the other part of it too is I know what kind of a commitment I'm signing up for with a Patreon, and I feel like in not very much time I may run out of stuff. Like I might run out of I
Yeah.
can switch up the from Superman to Iron Man to whoever.
Yeah.
But the techniques eventually become repetitive, and after a while I feel like people would just unsubscribe because they're like, okay, I've learned everything I can learn from this cat. Time to move on to somebody else.
You'd be surprised.
I
You'd
don't
be
know.
surprised.
I don't
Yeah.
claim to know what I'm doing in that realm. I'm not very self-promotion minded. I'm not very business minded. I just want to do stuff that's fun, that speaks to me, that I feel good about, and if it helps keep the lights on and feed the kids, then awesome. I don't want to
Yeah.
have to go get a regular job ever again because I won't make it. I don't know how to work in that field anymore, and have people breathing down my neck and all the crap that comes with a regular job. So I'm going to stretch this out as far as I can.
100%.
Yeah.
Hey,
But
can you
These
walk us
eyes,
through
man, these
this? Yeah, even the skin tones and everything. So your color choices on this are fantastic. I love Kingdom Come Superman. And is this a Eric Sosa piece?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, even going in and now, did you use pastels to get the shading in this? Did you brush on pastels, or is that paint in the dark blues?
So for him, I know that the habit for this format is to like hyper accentuate everything, right?
Uh-huh.
But for this piece, Sosa told me, just do your thing, just make it look good.
Mm-hmm.
So I purposely wanted the skin tones to really outshine the rest of it, because in reality, when a guy's in a suit like that, or when you look at most of Alex Ross's Kingdom Come Superman stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the contrast in the suit is completely dictated by the scene that he's in. The more sunlight,
Right.
the more natural light there is, the more cast shadow, the more vibrant the blue is.
Right.
So I purposely muted everything in the suit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go in and shade the suit too much. I didn't. The anatomy is already overblown. I don't need to go in and really
Sure.
etch that in. So
Yeah.
I purposely went almost Justice League animated
Mm-hmm.
fields to all of the color, and I desaturated the red on purpose too, because I really just wanted the portrait to sing, and for his gaze to engage you, and for you really to just see what you're supposed to see.
Yeah.
And no funny business, no fancy bullshit. So that's just spray paint with a little bit of airbrushing in some of the recesses of the anatomy, and that's all.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Didn't do anything really, because didn't need to.
Well, dude, the you can't help but like key in on the face because of those choices you made with the suit.
Yeah.
So as beautiful as Eric's sculpt is and your paint job is and all that, like my eye is being directed to the face and it wants to stay there. I think even the shading and stuff you have going around in his eyes and cheeks and everything is fantastic. So like how many hours of layers did it take to get to that?
A lot. There's two different portraits for him, and there was also at the same time we did the classic with there was Jim Lee, there was a John Byrne. I did it all at the same time. So there were 2 bodies and like 6 portraits, 2 Kingdom Come portraits, and 4 classic like superpowers Superman portraits.
Sure.
And I did everything simultaneously. It took me like a month and a half to do everything.
Okay.
So, and considering that the bodies were very generic on purpose, all of the time went into the portraits. So, and if you look through the photos, there's the one with there's that one, the classic, just Jim Lee stoic. And I did a little more freckling in the skin on him, and the eye laser. stuff. Like I wanted them to each have their own little bit of personality and not just feel like the same paint on different sculpted heads, if that makes sense.
Right.
So once I got towards the end of each portrait, rather than finish them off at the same time, I pulled each one out and decided, okay, what's going to make this one a little different? What's going to make this one a little different? What's going to make this one different?
Yeah.
So that when you buy the statue and you swap them out, it's more than just
Yeah.
an expression that's changing. He's a little in this portrait. He's a little warmer in the cheeks. His eyes are a little brighter.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that like fresh faced.
So the body's the same across all of them?
No, there's same body
No,
on that one. Yeah, those are the same body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just swap out.
Zoom in on the face a little bit, Bradley.
Yes.
So my thing is when I'm painting
Eyes.
faces, when I'm painting faces, and this one, you know, obviously it definitely feels like the source material. I keep going back to that Kingdom Come one because it's so rich with those tones. I always end up running into problems where it feels muddy in the face. Is there, you know, obviously without giving away the keys to the castle, is there a way to get yourself some nice shadows without your face turning into like a muddy mess?
Yeah, don't use brown.
Okay.
I mean, and I don't want to assume too much, but let me be specific. For Caucasian skin,
Like Caucasian skin tones, yeah.
I see people shading with browns for some reason.
Okay.
And he ends up looking dirty, or he ends up looking like he's using bronzer. He's orangey. Balance that out with a little, balance it out with some yellow first, and then do spot warmth, like cheekbones, the nostrils, the chin, and the forehead with a little bit of rosy red. Like warm those spots up a little bit. With flesh tones, you don't really have to go in and like hit all the recessed stuff. You don't have to overshade everything. I see a lot of people go in and they're trying to pull out all the details in your face. But if you just address the temperature of the skin, a lot of times just putting it in a room and letting the light do its job will do all of that for you. I mean, the way that it's sculpted, the cheekbones and the brow and the nose, you don't have to vary the color too much to bring that stuff out. And I would say if you're running into that problem, do this. Get some oil paints and take try to find like a pre-made flesh, like a Caucasian flesh color. It's probably going to be a little on the pink side. Add a little bit of yellow and then a bunch of white to it, and you'll make this really light, super pale, washed out version of your flesh. Dry brush just the raised areas on that, and then get a clean, soft brush and feather that in, because oils are naturally transparent. Like you can see through them. That color won't build up heavy on the skin. It's just going to lighten. Like when you look at that portrait, all those raised areas that catch all that light, so it reads as lighter. You can bring that out with dry brushing with oils, as opposed to adding darker color down into the recesses, which will make him look dirty and overcast.
So maybe that's my problem. I'm using acrylics for the face. Like I'm looking at the subtle, like there's such nice little subtle areas around the mouth of, it feels like there's a shadow there, from maybe he needs a shave or whatever. And then just even the areas that come like down from the eyes and stuff, there's the reds there and stuff. That's amazing, man. Like that's not easy to do. I got to tell you, I tried to do that on my Iron Fist and it looked ridiculous.
A lot of that's just instead of painting with opaque color, with solid colors, everything's thinned way out. Everything's very translucent or transparent, so that you can. You have to decide if you're going to paint from dark to light. Are you going to start dark and build your highlights up, or are you going to paint light to dark? On skin tones like Superman, I always go. I start super super pale, like very 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 pale, like this color pale.
Okay.
Because that allows me to incrementally slowly add washes and textures with a sponge and stipple with my airbrush. And if I don't like it, I can add. You can always add more, but once you go too far, you got to start over. Probably the thing that most pro painters will tell you the most, the thing I hear repeated, is you can always add more, but if you go too far, you can't really take it off. So when you're approaching a paint job and you're adding shading or weathering or whatever, I would tell everyone, keep that in mind, is baby steps. Just add a little bit at a time. You can always go a little more if you need to, if it's not enough. But once you overdo it, you're fucked and you're done. So
yeah. No, that's amazing, man. Yeah,
I would tell you, and talking about skin tones, I know you want to go. I would really like I've seen a lot of African American skin painted, both digitally and non-digitally, and it I think it's an art, and I think you did like some of the best work I've seen with looking at African American skin in something, and you really like nailed it in this one.
Yeah.
What are your tips around that?
I mean, if you understand how to layer colors and how to tint color, there's a lot of underpainting involved, more so. I mean, there's some underpainting involved with Caucasian flesh, but for me personally, to do African American skin or Asian skin, it's understanding which colors react a certain way. So, with him, you want to start somewhere in a reddish brown, and then you want to take a leather brown and add yellow and do all the highlights, and then you want to mist like a transparent burnt orange over all of that. The best way I can...
primer color that you're doing when you're doing all of that?
Primer is like rusty red brown primer. Yeah. If you go to Google and you just type in, like, the easiest way is like, so if you're trying to do, like, if I have an idea for a male character, okay, Michael B. Jordan, go to Google, Michael B. Jordan, go to images. There's tons of just headshots of that man. Look at the recessed areas. Look at the highest points on his face. Like, there's yellow in there. There's orange in there. In the warmer areas, there's like a little more purpley brown in there. It's just, I mean, I don't know. You just have to assign everything a color and then map out, okay, I mean, if you have to take a piece of cardboard and paint on the cardboard as you go with your skin so that you can see how the layering is going to work, do that before you do it on the model. Otherwise, you're just, you're kind of headed for disaster. And, I think the first non-white character that I ever painted was from Aliens, the drill sergeant, Apone, or however you say his name. It was for a 1/6 scale figure that it was like a G.I. Joe body with clothing. And then it was a custom resin head that the guy mailed me. And he's like, yeah, make it look like the actor. I had only been painting seriously for like a year and a half. Again, didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I figured out real quick what I was doing wrong trying to paint, my first black man in resin. Yeah, it'll humble you real quick. And it really, if you're trying to do it justice, your thirst for knowledge it only increases. So, another tip that Kat showed me when I was at Sideshow was, she took a portrait and she went into, it was either Photoshop or Painter, and she would just use the dropper,
color picker.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she would pick out tones in the person whose skin tone she was trying to emulate. She would create a swatch and she would fill that in with that color. So she was pulling out those tones and blowing them up into these big blocks that you can see very clearly what color to use. So then she goes and she makes her, skin recipes that way so she can see, okay, I isolated those three values of that skin tone, make those in paint, and then apply them the way, you think that they should be applied to the figure. And once I saw her do it that way, it just kind of encouraged me to copy, steal, follow suit, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's genius. So it's really nice when other artists aren't afraid to like really just give that to just say, hey, you want to know how? Here's how. Boom. And you're like, well, I would have never figured that out. It takes some of the struggle, takes away some of the struggle, and it gets you excited to go try it on your own.
Yeah. His cane is crazy, dude.
Yeah, I don't know if that ever turned into anything, but I prototyped it. I did the print and the paint for that one. So
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Clean. So do you?
Can you?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Now I was going to say, can you go to where do I want to see next? Go down. Actually, I want to see that Bert and Ernie. That thing looks crazy. It reminds me of Levisi, Dan Levisi's work. Is that based off of his illustrations?
So it's a garage kit by a sculptor, a friend of mine named Gabe Perna.
Okay.
It's just a kit that he did, and I said, "Hey, give me a copy of the kit. I'll paint it up for you, and you can use it for your table display or whatever." So it took me forever to get it done, but finally, right before one of the garage kit shows, I sat down and I said, "Okay, I'm just gonna do this," and to be honest, it was like 3 a.m, and I was trying to get this and something else done for another vendor. I don't remember where my headspace was at the time that I painted this. I just know I wanted him to kind of feel like a rotten banana a little bit.
It's dope,
I just wanted him to be creepy. I just wanted him to look just out of place. So
yeah,
I don't know. I just just made some shit up and was like, yeah, that looks cool. That works. And just said, okay, he's done.
I don't know why, but I want this really bad. Like, I really wish I had this for real. And I wish I had an Ernie to go with it. That's fresh as hell. I don't know what. Yeah. That nose, dude. This is the drops on there. That's fresh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's killer, dude. Did we show folks? Wait a minute. Let's see. Go to. There's so much good stuff to look at here.
I know, man.
Oh, Hulk. Hulk is what I wanted to see. I like your Hulk a lot.
Stuff is amazing too.
Yeah. Yeah, love the Hulk. Oh man, that Alex Ross Superman was fresh too. So this is the one where they put the actual fabric pants on. Did you have to cut that off and put it back on again?
No. So if you go back to the other photo, you see a line through his thigh on his left leg.
Yes. Yeah.
So that leg, what you have to do is you have to pin that leg, to put a big metal pin in it, and then glue it to either the thigh or either the hip or the leg itself, so that that leg can always come off. And what you do is you put the pants on the other leg, you pull the pants leg back over, and then you stick the leg on and pull the pants leg back down, and voila.
What? Crazy. The skin tones on this are great, man. This is another thing. Like that hand. Can you zoom in on the fist hand? That's beautiful, man. Like that feels like a photo of what you would hope that the Hulk would look like. Not oversaturated, not too muddy, but it like feels like there's blood under that skin to me.
Yeah.
I think that's fresh, man. The way you handle the veins and stuff. See, this is the thing. As an illustrator, I can appreciate everything you're doing here. You know what I mean? Like, I know that we're gonna have people that just do 3D stuff and they can be like, oh yeah, whatever. But no, this is masterclass. This is masterclass shit right here. So, you want to tell us about is this another one of those commissions that somebody asked you to do a repaint?
No, this was another kit.
Okay.
This was commissioned by a collector named Francois. His company, I think, is Mad X Collectibles. It was like a little over 2 feet tall. It weighs like it weighed like 50 pounds. I'm not shitting you. This thing was a monster.
Solid.
Wow. Yes, solid resin, and it was sculpted by Andy Bergholtz, the guy who did the OG Hulk for Sideshow. Like,
nice.
The very first one. Yeah, he's a monster. But my approach on this one was, when you think of the Hulk's skin and what it is, right? It's like rhino hide, right? Like it's impervious. The idea that's like, people don't understand the way skin works when they draw or they paint Hulk and they show his veins showing through his skin.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. Like, his skin is so dense and thick, you can't see any of the color of his veins through his skin. Otherwise, you'd be able to poke right through it. Like, it just doesn't it doesn't compute to me. So everything that I paint when I approach things, that's my weird nerdy take on everything. It's got to make sense to me, or otherwise it feels wrong. And I don't really care that you're paying me and that's what you want. I'm screaming inside trying to paint dark or bright green veins on Hulk's arms. Like you'll
Right.
never see the color of his blood, even if it
Sure.
is gamma irradiated. So everything about this paint job was the same. The collector was kind of like, yeah, just make it look cool. So I did what made sense to me and how I thought it would look. And that's really all it is. There's no like.
And
have you ever done
start this
something
one with
like
gray
this?
primer? What was the base prime on this one?
So on this one, I was moving out of that studio at the time, which is why these pictures are complete ass. There was I was finishing this piece, as you can tell by the way the background looks. There's almost nothing left in the room, so all of my stuff was packed up and moved to another building down the block. But the place I moved into was upstairs, but the downstairs was a storefront. It was an automotive parts store. And he could do custom spray paint because he had a supplier. So if I provided him with a swatch, he could get me a whole spray can of the shit. So I mixed up with regular acrylics. I mixed up a base color, which was like a yellowy, grayish green, like very desaturated, almost like a snap pea or something. And I gave him that, and I said, I need 3 cans of this shit. And I used that to spray paint that monster. And then I just airbrushed everything over top of that. I used sea sponges and like those big sponges that you would use, like the old school big yellow sponge with all the big holes in it. I would rip off pieces of that and dunk it in lighter colored green and dab it all over. And then I would take a spray gun and I would water out a darker green and mist it all over everything to kind of push all that modeled pattern down so it looked like it was in the skin and not on top of the skin. Then I would mix up darker transparent colors and airbrush those down into all the recesses to bring out all the anatomy and shade it properly.
So what kind of transparent paint are you using? Like, is that acrylic or is that oil? Like, what are you using for the transparent colors?
So for transparents, my favorite is
that the Tamiya stuff?
No, it's by Com Art, which is like a subsidiary of Iwata, I believe. Because the guy that used to supply all my Iwata stuff, they would make all the Com Art stuff too. There's a transparent figure kit. There's a whole set of 2-ounce bottles you can buy. There's a transparent smoke that's an amazing color for doing shading and just adding darker color, adding depth to things without worrying about which shade or which tone of green do I add over top of this. If you were doing like up under the armpits or under the chin or something, you can just throw some of this transparent smoke into your airbrush and just very lightly airbrush those areas, and it adds that shadow instantly. It looks great on comic book characters as well. But yeah, the Com Art stuff is my favorite. I love that. If I can't get a hold of that, Badger makes a line of Minotaur. I believe they're called like ghost oils or something like that. It's basically just their version of transparent colors. But they're really awesome too. They make some really nice colors.
Nice.
Yeah, Golden makes some really nice airbrush ready paints too. But Golden's a little pricey it doesn't do anything special for me for that price. So I try to stay away from Golden.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Do you ever mess with, because now everybody's talking about contrast paints. Do you enjoy contrast paints? You really don't mess with them too much?
I don't really know what it is.
Okay. It's almost like a one step that it'll give almost like a wash, and it'll sit in the recesses and be really dark. And then everything else is a medium. And then on the top areas, it looks light, like you almost dry brushed it. So it's almost like a one step. A lot of the miniature painters use it. But I've seen people using it with larger scale stuff now.
Yeah. On larger stuff, I don't know that I would want to.
That's fresh.
I don't know that I would want to try. I wouldn't want to try that. On something smaller, or like for like mouth details for lips and teeth and gums. Yeah, I'd love to try it. That sounds like that stuff would be perfect for that. But yeah, not for anything larger. It's not something that's on my radar, so I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Speaking of lips and teeth and gums, man, this is dope. I like this one. You killed it. And that just a little bit of freckling on the cheeks is just, it really makes this piece awesome, dude. I like this.
That was a fun one too.
I like the
Nice.
detail that you painted in the armor piece
Scales.
Also. And how it's like chipping away, like the nuances.
Yeah, that's dope.
All right, one more.
Oh,
Mike,
I know what I want to see. I want to see the X-Men little corner piece, because I remember seeing this also on IG and was like, wow, this is dope. No, the Marvel. Go to the Marvel X-Men. It's next to Batman. Go up one and over. Go to the go over to the right, to the right, to the right. Keep going. Right there. Stop.
Right there.
Stop. Nope. Go back. Yep. Those two. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please. So those are what you would find on the Marvel the X-Men comic. That's so fresh.
So I gotta say this. On Instagram, if you look up at Jakerton Art, the gentleman who sculpted these, he never really got his due on this whole thing. This was my concept. I asked him to use the heads that he sculpted as my trial piece. We ended up, I mold and cast, it was supposed to be 30 copies of this thing that I was trying to make on my own on top of all my other work. I didn't price it properly. I couldn't get them done in time. So not even 30 of them got made, and I sold them for like 200 or 250 bucks, which was stupid.
Yeah.
So if nothing else comes from it, I've always felt like, Jacob really deserved so much props and respect for his contribution to this thing. Because without it, all I had was an idea. All I had was a concept.
Yeah.
I'm not a sculptor. I didn't have access to the heads, and he had them ready to go. They were already done, and I was like, can I borrow those? So I'm sure there's been times, it's been like 3 or 4 years since the whole thing even started. And it fell through my fingers, and I dropped the ball on it big time. But yeah, I've always I want to make sure that anytime this thing pops up, people know that that's his work, and to send people his direction, because he absolutely did the heavy lifting on this. So
I follow him. I'm always really pleasantly surprised when I see his portraits. Like, I just always think they're so amazing. Right. But no, this came out nice, man. Like, that's a great piece to have next to any of like collector stuff. You know what I mean? Like, awesome.
I wanted to try to get it done licensed, but when I would try to get it in front of people or try to show it off online, anyone who had the license just didn't seem interested. And I had ideas to do more, but with I'm one person. A portrait takes the longest to paint on any figure, and you're doing 7 of them. Like, to paint the eyes, and they're going to be a little sloppy because you're trying to bang out, do 10 Cyclops heads at once and then 10 Wolverines at once, so you can build it all and say, okay, I've got 10 copies done. But that alone takes a week, not to mention painting the box and the backdrop and the Marvel letters. It's really something that I never should have attempted to do on my own. Like, I just didn't. Again, one of those didn't have it all the way thought out. I had the front end, so I just kind of ran with it and realized halfway in that I was just like hemorrhaging time and money. So
you live and learn, man, and it's really an awesome portfolio piece. Honestly, it's a great idea. We one of our friends that's we actually have this group of guys, the super friends, Tony and Brad Grotman. Brad does these shadow box comic covers, and you might have seen it online, but he goes ham on them, man. Like, he did some Spawn stuff and a Spider-Man piece, and it's like this fully realized comic that when you turn it, you see all of the, like, he'll do a whole character coming out of it. So yeah, when I see this, I think of what he did, and I just love the idea, Yeah. Maybe. So, go to, and then I'll let you pick the next one, Bradley. Go to, go down. I want to see, go down a little more. Where is it? keep going. Oh, the Hellboy. I want to see the Hellboy. Where is it?
Oh, the Hellboy was here.
Yeah. Let's see the Hellboy. This is the one that Magnolis was like, yeah, it's okay. Is this the one or is it another one?
No, that was a different one.
Okay.
This one I sculpted long time ago and made a really shitty mold and had shitty castings of it, and was offering it up, painted and ready to go to whoever wanted it. This one was for a client who said I wanted to look like his older artwork, like the original story arc, the original Seed of Destruction, Wake the Devil. I want it to be that version of Hellboy. So I own all those books because I'm a huge Hellboy nut, and I just opened up a page and I'm like, okay, and painted it up like that. And I think he probably paid like 150 or 175 for the thing, and I shipped it off, and that was that. So I used to make these to order back when I didn't have a lot of commercial stuff going on. I was just kind of doing whatever I could do to make some cash.
It looks nice on that base too. Like, what made you think of that base?
So that Hobby Lobby candlestick holder.
What?
I just chopped it off at an angle and stuck him on.
Brilliant. Dude, so I didn't even send, I feel bad because I didn't send pictures to Bradley of your workspace. So I'm gonna have to visit Ed, and I don't know how you steal a whole wall, but he did a wall facade for his studio that's fire. It looks like bricks. But he made, so tell us about that. I don't have it in the picture. Sorry, man. Tell us about.
We're gonna edit it in here. We're gonna edit it in here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Yeah. So tell us about that wall, because he said he was like, yeah, I was home for the weekend alone, and then I don't want to step on the story. Tell him the story. You did this thing in like a weekend, and it looks like real ass bricks.
So I had this idea for the home office, and wife and kids went out of town. And told my wife, I said, hey, I got an idea. I've been on Pinterest. I've been looking at other DIY projects. I think I know what I want. I got the lights on Amazon. I got the faux brick panels are at Home Depot. I could probably, the paint's easy. I could probably do this before you even get home. So I didn't quite get it done before she got home. When she came home, I was painting the walls. Excuse me. But the beauty shot wall was done. The paneling, the lights, the trim, top and bottom, everything was moved out, and the walls had already been cut in by the time she got home. So
crazy.
I just
I
got tired of always having like shitty workspaces, and I'm like, my garage is where I paint, and that's always gonna look like doo doo. I at least wanted. Inside the house, when people come over and they see where I do all my 3D printing, I wanted this to seem put together and legitimate and professional. I wanted this to seem like I'm not a scrub that's just running some kind of sweatshop in his garage all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I took the time to put the work in, and it wasn't very expensive, to be honest. I did it for like a little under $500. So totally
nice.
Remodeled the whole home office. So.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. I have that piece right there, son. I have that one. I was going to ask you if you did that.
Everybody hates that piece. As soon as it got released.
You crazy.
As soon as
I love that piece.
The images got released, people were shitting on it. They were like, oh, it looks cheap. There's no... Because again, my style when I paint things, if you don't tell me otherwise, I'm very understated. I hold back a lot. So... I didn't feel the need to do a lot with the gold part of the armor. I'm like, if this was real, it wouldn't have all this weird orangey airbrushed heavy shading to everything. So I did a little bit of shading with like a transparent antique gold. But for the most part, I was like, it's supposed to look shiny and regal, and he's supposed to be impressive. So I didn't fuck with it too much, and everybody hated it. They're like, nah. Looks cheap and
they're crazy. Whatever, dude.
It's fine. It didn't hurt my feelings. Like, you can't expect everyone. Not everybody thinks my kid's a genius, but I do. you know, or that she's the cutest on the planet, but I do.
Right.
Like, I don't need you to like everything I do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They say like
Yeah.
other people's opinion of you is none of your business.
Yeah.
I'd rather not hear what everybody thinks of my work. If people rehire me and I continue to get paid to do what I do, that's the only validation I need. The rest is just chatter from a bunch of people who don't care if I live or die or if my family, you know, eats tomorrow or not. They don't care. It's just the nature.
I just thought of something, and I think it applies to this. You can use this if you want. I just thought of it myself, but I think haters are going to hate. I just made that up. Just made that up. Haters going to hate.
I've never heard that before.
That's all.
That's very insightful of you.
Thank you. Let's trademark it. Bookmark the time, Bradley. This is. You want to make sure.
What I love about this, you got the richness of the face, and then I think the way the armor is like holding back the way you did really brings out the face, and it makes it a better piece because like he has a lot going on as far as like the texture of his face, the wrinkles, the shading, and then to like have this not so noisy suit really adds to the piece. Like I think
it's clean.
I like it actually. Like
it's
super clean.
Yeah, it's the same trick that I've used every time I've been allowed. If you allow me to use that trick, I'm going to, because I don't see people running around wearing clothing in real life that's all super busy. You know what I mean? Like it's like things don't look that way. That's just not what it looks like in person. So when you scale it down, I don't know that I need to go in and make it. Some people would say that it looks more dynamic or it's more punchy or looks more comic booky when you do it that way. And then that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with someone who has that take on things. You know, there's people that I used to hear shit on the Shiflett brothers all the time because their stuff looks unfinished and it just looks like they don't know how to finish the sculpt. And I'm like, if you knew what you were looking at, you would appreciate what they're doing. But the fact that you're ignorant to it, I'm not mad at you for that. I know what it is. I see the value in the work. So that's all that matters.
You know the thing you're doing too that people don't appreciate, but I appreciate it as an illustrator, is that you're creating a focal point.
Yeah.
So all of the understated, muted colors that you're choosing to use consciously are making me look at them, appreciate them, but they're pushing my eyes to the face, which is what you want people to look at. Like, okay, here's, everything else is this blue and gold. And now you have the face, which my favorite portrait is the smile that you did. That one is the fire. But yeah, it, like, you can't help but look at that and then also appreciate, okay, the matte finish of it is probably my favorite part of this whole thing. So
yeah, and I've done that a lot too. Like, I'll matte finish everything, and then at the end I'll go back and go, okay, satin here, gloss there. And only when I want those things to stand out, not by assigning them a different color, but by assigning them a different sheen. So the nature of every color. You could take the same shade of red and do flat satin gloss. They're gonna read differently. Black is the best example. You just take straight jet black and get a completely different profile out of it just by adding a little more of a sheen to it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the things I've done are choices I'm consciously making. Some of it is the opposite. Some of it is just, it's not a conscious thing. I'm either out of time, or I'm lazy, or nobody pointed it out and I didn't think of it. I mean, I can't take credit for all of it. It's not. It wouldn't be authentic.
Let me ask you this, and answer the best way you can without getting in trouble, obviously, with clients. But
sure,
I always loved the quality of the Kotobukiya stuff. I just thought that you're getting a lot for your money, right? So like for this one, I don't think that cost me more than $200. It was like $175 or something like that. And then I'll buy, a quarter scale that's, almost $1,000. So when you're doing a paint job, you're doing an equal amount of work for the 1/6 scale as yours a quarter scale. is the compensation in the neighborhood of being the same, or making a master is going to be wildly different between those two SKUs?
It's way different. So the Kodo stuff was more 1/6,
Okay.
which is a scale that I prefer.
Mhm.
I can get that done in a ridiculously faster turnaround than a quarter scale piece.
Right.
Because the quarter scale piece, because there's more surface area, there's also more texture sculpted into it, so it demands more attention.
Mhm.
You can get away with some subtleties in 1/6 that you're not going to get away with in 1/4 because it's in your face, man. The eyes are,
Right.
at quarter scale, everything's there. The stubble in the, I mean,
Yeah.
he's got that Jim Lee Batman.
Yeah.
Exactly my point. If you were to shrink that down to 1/6, I could do half the work and it would still look good.
Sure.
So compensation for 1/6 is severely less than quarter scale.
Okay.
So
Okay.
plus,
Cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
quarter scale, just the sheer management of all the parts involved in a quarter scale piece. You've got parts everywhere, so now you're having to manage this much larger, scope of a project compared to
Mhm.
1/6, which is much more manageable. And if there are more parts, they're all pretty tiny. So to paint that entire part is a quick and you're done. Versus quarter scale, you're looking at 4 or 5 more passes with color to get an even
Yeah.
coverage. More material, more time, more stress, more revisions. I love 1/6 scale, and if I could swap out all the quarter scale stuff and go back to 1/6, I would do it in a heartbeat. I love 1/6 scale everything.
Okay. What do you hold those sticks with? I see the alligator clip sometimes in the stick. I have tried to find something that, it looks almost like a pegboard where you slide the thing in there, or I see some people using styrofoam or something. But if you got a heavy quarter scale resin head, it's going to fall over. So what do you put those into when you're not holding them in your hand?
I buy 1/2-inch plywood, cut it into 10 by 10 sections. I used to use old brush handles to do that, but then I started buying bags of bamboo skewers. They come in 2 different outside diameters, and that way I can pre-plan my holes in my plywood. So I'll go around and I'll do one pass, and I'll do like 6 rows of 5 or 6.
So you drill the holes in there, and then you can just put it in.
Right, and then in between those rows, I go with the smaller size. So depending on which size bamboo skewer I use, I've already got a predetermined place to stick it. When I run out of space on those, because sometimes I do if I'm doing multiple projects, you can see that really thick foam right behind his head. I'll take big blocks of that foam and I'll hot glue them all together, and I'll stick them down in that stuff too.
Okay.
If they don't weigh a whole lot, I'll put them in the styrofoam. If they've got some good weight to them, I'll put them in the plywood.
And are you using just vent holes, like air holes that you would use when you're doing a print to put the stick in? Do you kind of measure out like a 4 millimeter hole because that's the bamboo skewer is going to fit in there?
Yeah. So if it's a resin casting, which this was, I'll just take, when I'm drilling the holes, I already know which.
Oh, you'll drill that as well.
I'll drill it up into the resin casting, and I'll stick a skewer up in there, and that's it. So I do all that at the very beginning. Another important thing too that I didn't know was a thing, but I guess people don't like completely dry fit and build the thing before they paint it to make sure everything actually does fit together. And I'll admit there's been times where if I'm in a rush, I'll just pull shit out of a box to start painting. And then at the end, when I have to put it together to do photos,
big gaps between it.
Or it's too tight. It actually doesn't fit. So you got to get a Dremel and start grinding stuff out, which makes a mess of your paint job. So that's another piece of advice I would give that may seem obvious, but when your head's everywhere else, make sure you dry fit all your pieces first before you prime and paint. That way for sure.
Do you use putty for gaps when you do the dry fit?
If it's engineered properly, there won't be any visible gaps when you put it all together. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but with a lot of the stuff that I do professionally, since it's on that level, it's already been thought out. It's already been engineered that way, because at the factory doesn't want to have to do putty. And also it needs to be in pieces to get it in the box and ship it without breaking. So yeah, hopefully you don't need to putty anything. It should have, nowadays everything's, because we can engineer it precisely in ZBrush and we can put magnets and everything at the factory, you should be able to just pop it all together. There's really no need for glue and putty anymore.
I find that I still, even when I'm bullioning one piece out of another, I still get gaps from time to time. And I've been, you know, sometimes they're not bad. When I did that filament Hulk, they were like terrible. So I'd have to use all kinds of like wood filler and stuff like that. But yeah, I saw some lady on YouTube who had this, it was I think Tamiya brand, but it was a quick set putty that she was mixing some yellow paint in. It looked like mustard when she was done. And then she would put Vaseline on one half of the model, and then she would put down the putty on the other half, and then she would mush it together and then kind of go in and with a wet kind of a tool and make it nice and clean. And that would dry, and it would be just like it was born to fit that piece. So now, I was going to ask if you did anything like that.
Yes. So there's a material. It's a two-part. It's the stuff that the shiftlets sculpt in most of the time. It's Aves epoxy, AVES.
Yeah.
And it's very minimal shrinkage. You can drill it, sand it, whatever. Once it cures, it takes most of the time about 3 hours, maybe a little longer. When you first mix it together, it's very sticky. It's like peanut butter. As it starts to cure, it gets more of a waxy outside. The tool's real nice. So I was just doing this with a project in the garage today. When you want to create a really tight, perfect fit. So say you have a foot and the key and the foot don't quite fit in the base.
Yes.
Snug, and it's a little bit overplayed and whatever. So you would mix up the Aves, and you'll mix the two parts together till it's even. Put a couple of little worms of that down into your base area, and take your finger and kind of push it up against the edge, flatten it out. Then you want to put Vaseline on the bottom of the foot and on the key. If you don't want to do that, if it's a pre-paint and you want to fix it, get some shrink wrap, saran wrap, wrap that around the foot and the key, and then smush it down in there, and it'll smush the Aves in there, get a nice clean, perfect fit. The Vaseline and or the saran wrap will keep the foot from sticking to it. It'll stay put on the base where you want it. As far as the edges, you can use an X-Acto knife or a sculpting tool and just go around and scrape or clean up. It'll once you let it sit for about an hour, you can actually go back and start carving detail back in it. So if it's busted stone or clumps of earth, or you have to fix a seam on a shoulder and it's got a little crosshatch in it, you can actually go in and resculpt that texture, and then get a wet brush with some alcohol, or they actually sell a solution that's made to blend out the Sculpey, or not Sculpey, the Aves.
The Aves,
they make that for Sculpey as well. But anyway, you go back and you smooth it out and let it dry, and then you can sand it and repaint it or whatever. So yeah, there's little tricks to all that kind of stuff, and maybe that's the stuff I should visit if I ever decide to do a Patreon or do some little video, some quick edited things where we speed it up and add some music or whatever. Just to show people like, hey, Captain America's shield has a chip in it. Here's how we fix it. Batman's wrist guard thing lost one of his fins. Here's how we use cardstock and some super glue to remake that. Whatever. I've learned over the years all kinds of ways to. That's kind of what got me into wanting to do this too, was just repairing all those statues for a couple of years. It's like you just pick things up as you go, and it starts to make sense to you.
Nice.
Yeah, but gaps aren't too terrible as long as you address that shit before you start painting. Once you've started painting, then it can be a problem.
No doubt. That was fantastic. I'm a big fan of Eddie's, and I'm so happy to have gotten a chance to talk to him. I will be definitely picking his brain on painting techniques, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have. Stay tuned for more interviews. We will be bringing you some more soon, some big names. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and share the Stylist League on YouTube, and join our Discord, and maybe pick up some merch. Take care, guys.